Hello everyone and welcome to Histories Tech, and today we are still looking at experimental aircraft. We are going to be looking at the first of what is known as the X-planes, the Bell X-1. Now the Bell X-1 was the first aircraft to break the sound barrier intentionally at leveled flight, meaning that it was flying perfectly parallel to the ground and there was no dive involved to help increase speed. And this aircraft is extremely important as this is the beginning of supersonic flight, traveling faster than the speed of sound, that will become important for all future jet aircraft and commercial jet aircraft, such as the Concorde, which was designed to travel at supersonic speeds. But let's go ahead and look at the Bell X-1. Now, when we talk about aircraft being able to break the sound barrier, the Bell X-1 was not the first aircraft to do this. And in fact, aircraft such as like the P-47 Thunderbolt and the P-38 Lightning had actually broken the sound barrier, but they had done these in things such as dives. And it was noticed while they were diving these aircraft that it was incredibly hard to pull them out of these high-speed dives once they broke the sound barrier, and typically this led to the aircraft crashing. And at the same time we're starting to break the sound barrier with these propeller-based aircraft, we have the emergence of the jet and rocket age, and we get aircraft like the ME-163 Comet, the ME-262, the Gloucester Meteor, and such as this, but these aircraft are not capable of breaking the sound barrier. And this is where we start to see aircraft being designed to purposely break the sound barrier, and these supersonic aircraft such as the Miles M52 were designed to achieve over 1,000 miles per hour. However, the Miles M52 was way overly ambitious. It came at a time that just was not ready for such technology to be developed, and the project would eventually be abandoned eventually. However, they would build a 1/3 scale model that would break the sound barrier, proving the design was capable. Instead, what we get is a more conventionally designed aircraft to achieve breaking the sound barrier designed by Bell, and Bell developed the X-1, also known as the XS-1 and the Bell Model 44. And this would be one of multiple experimental aircraft that Bell Aircraft would end up developing over the years. Now, the overall design of the X-1 was based on that of a .50 caliber round, and the aircraft was essentially designed to be a bullet with wings, as this was seen to be the most stable design at supersonic flight. Now, the early tests of the X-1 were basically glide tests. They would put it on the bottom of a B-29, get it up to altitude, drop the aircraft, and just see what its flight capabilities were. The aircraft was officially tested for supersonic flight on October 14, 1947, when its pilot, Charles Chuck Yeager, took up what was now known as the Glamorous Glennis, that he named it, up for its test. And essentially what they did is they did exactly what the glide test did. They attached it to the underside of a B-29. They got it up to altitude, about 29,000 feet. They dropped the aircraft, he ignited the engines for it, and the aircraft managed to achieve Mach 1.06, which is 700 miles per hour. Once the engines burned out after running out of fuel, he glided it down and for a landing on a dry lake bed, thus completing the test. Interestingly enough, this was a classified test, and only 2 months later, it was leaked out to the general public, and the government wouldn't even officially acknowledge that this had happened until the following summer in June of 1948. Now, what most people don't know is the X-1 was only the beginning, and several variants of it were made. Following the success of the X-1, the Bell X-1A was made, and this was basically an enlarged version of the X-1 designed to carry a heavier fuel load so that it could burn for a longer time. Now, because of this aircraft actually managed to achieve Mach 2.44, more than 2 times the speed of sound, or 1,620 miles per hour. Sadly, this aircraft was lost during an experimental run. They were doing it just like they had done it every other time. They had attached it to an RB-50, which is the improved version of a B-29. While they were getting ready to launch the aircraft, the fuel tank ruptured on it. They had to jettison the aircraft before it exploded and blew up the RB-50. The next variant developed was known as the X-1B, and this was basically the X-1A with a slightly different wing design. This aircraft actually became the first aircraft to use directional rockets to help control it, which would later be important to the development of the X-15. And the X-15 is important because it was needed to design spacecraft. Sadly, this aircraft was permanently grounded after cracks were found inside of the fuel tanks, and it now spends its life as a museum piece. Now, the third variant, known as the X-1C, was basically designed to be the test for arms and ammunition on an X-1 platform. However, the development of the F-86 Sabre and the F-100 Super Sabre prevented them from ever needing to build this aircraft. The fourth X-1 variant, known as the X-1D, was basically the first ever second generation supersonic rocket plane. and was designed basically to study heat transfer occurring in aircraft, what parts heat up, things like that, so that as they managed to get the aircraft faster and faster, they knew potential danger of the aircraft. And this would actually be crucial in the future when the SR-71 would be developed. And the final variant of the X-1 series is known as the X-1E, and this is basically a rebuild of the original X-1-2, which was the second prototype of the original X-1 series. And the design improvements included things such as a new fuel system, as the older fuel systems that had cracked and caused explosions had to be replaced, a new super thin wing design to allow it to achieve Mach 2 much easier, and injection seats in case there was an accident with the aircraft. Because of these upgrades and modifications, the X-1E actually was able to achieve Mach 3, which is 2,300 miles per hour. After 26 successful test flights, the aircraft was permanently grounded due to structural cracks found within its frame and its fuel tanks. That would be the end of the X-1 series, and they would move on to later aircraft such as the X-2 and beyond. Now, if you would like to visit these aircraft, 3 of them still exist. The initial X-1-1, the Glamorous Glennis, can be found at the National Air and Space Museum. The X-1B can be found at the National Museum of the United States Air Force, and the X-1E can be found at the NASA Armstrong Flight Research Center. But there you have it, a look at the Bell X-1, an incredibly important aircraft to the development of jet aircraft and going faster than the speed of sound. And we would not have such amazing aircraft that we do today, like the SR-71 or the F-22, the F-18, the F-35, all capable of supersonic flight, had it not been for this aircraft. And now with the redevelopment of the X-59 and going back into retesting supersonic flight for quiet capabilities, it's time to look back on the legacy the X-1 created. But that's it for today. I thank you for joining me, and I look forward to talking to you on the next time.